Witnesses, and Tiffany Lombardi is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. We invite you to stand and we're going to sing songs.
Well, it's been 1 year to date since we've been disfellowshipped, and we have some original footage we'll go through and kind of discuss how we're feeling and whatever else, because it's, I guess this video is sort of about our emotional state.
Partly that.
Mental state.
For us, it's like wrapping our heads around, okay, it's been 1 year, kind of a transition time in our life. I mean, we're wearing our same clothes. I'm wearing the dress I was disfellowshipped when they announced being disfellowshipped. Chad's wearing his tie, and he's not wearing a suit or whatever because we're not going anywhere, but...
And quite honestly, the last year, as she mentioned, a year of transition. I remember we went through the elders. We've dealt with these situations in the congregation the entire time we've been witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, it was rather prophetic. Out of all the letters that we have that we wrote back and forth or sent, the one we wish we had back is one where I said we're going to have problems inside and outside the congregation.
I think if I remember right, the letter was kind of that solidifying. Are you sure that you want to be in a relationship with me, be married, recognize that we're going to be us against the world?
Yeah.
And boy, was that a prophetic statement, because it really feels that way some days. Come on.
Yeah. So what's kind of interesting is that after we went through the whole marry in the Lord versus date only in the Lord dogma, basically it took a year off. The Israelites took a year off after they got married. They didn't have to go to war. They didn't have to get involved in those things. So they basically just had time with their wife for a year. And I remember when that happened, that whole scenario, that's basically what I thought of it as, because they removed my pioneer privileges then. And it was like, yeah, you know what? I'll just take the year off and spend it with my wife, pretty much. Mm-hmm. As far as Jehovah Witness itinerary goes. We went to meetings and things like that, went out in service, but just weren't into it, so to speak. We just took the year off and got to know each other, meld with each other. Mm-hmm. And so now it was like after disfellowshipping is almost a similar thing, to buy out that year and just see how it all plans out. Not that you're totally laying stagnant, but as far as moving forward on any major issue, you're just going to kind of lie low as far as that goes. Got to kind of hold the pattern to some degree.
So we were kind of discussing like this week of anniversary, because we're announced November 20th. That was our date for the announcement. And then the 23rd is when my little Lufa died, my dog. Many of you can see that in a previous video, but it's just kind of a...
And she'll probably do a memorial, I guess, in that way, a video of all little excerpt Lufa clips just to post for
we found some videos and things.
So during this year of transition, you often go through the back of your mind, we know we are disfellowshipped unjustly, simply for having a question. We know that we can prove, or they can't prove, what it is that we are questioning. So you get this idea in your back of your mind, though, because you run up against individuals who are, they expect you to be awake, to throw your faith totally away, or swap over to Christendom. Well, I was raised in a lot of different denominations around. My grandmother's Catholic. Growing up, we went to the mega churches, with the big band up front. We've been to small churches in different non-denominational. They basically teach a variance of the same basic ideology. She grew up Lutheran. So it's not like we were born as witnesses and raised as witnesses and had no idea what Christendom in general is about. We basically just already know about those religions. So it's not something that we are drawn to in the first place. We became witnesses out of John 4:23 and 24. Certain truths that we can prove. And so when we get individuals on there, and we just got a text yesterday where the individual is saying, well, I'll check back and see if you've woke up because you're following the Borg. It's like, hey, you know what? Anytime that you want to come out of the dark shadows of just being a troll and discuss a biblical subject, us scriptures, where we can post it on video for everybody to see the end result, we're all willing to do that, because a lot of times what these individuals will do, they love to come out there and they come out from under the shadows of trolling, and just look up the definition of trolling, but they'll come out, then they'll post their comment. So then you can have a whole comment in line with this thread, proving different points, bringing out different scriptures, back them into a corner, and as soon as you do, they delete their comment, and it deletes your whole thread. Now, I've got them. They're all on my computer because they're all sent to me. All the comments are sent directly to my email. But the reality is that as soon as you pin them in a corner, they delete them, and then they go away. And then they'll come back from underneath their shadows and troll you again. And so it's like, well, maybe we should just go back. Maybe is that the answer? Because we know we're right as far as Job said.
We didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, as Job said, proclaim his own righteousness. Jehovah corrected him on that. But he also said, to my deathbed, I will not pronounce you men righteous.
Will not take away my integrity.
Yeah, I'm not taking away my integrity.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, how do you even go back, for one? And for two, we can already prove those things, but maybe we should just put that aside. And you just go back because the incite to love and find works thing. We do know that they incite to keep marriages strong. There are some good things about witnesses. I'll just say that.
And I think a lot of that stuff can be up for debate based on a person's personal situation and their experience with witnesses. Because, there are situations where families have been disrupted.
Yeah.
To say like, oh, be a better wife, or let's say there's sexual abuse in the family. I mean, these are cases that are apparently not rare.
Yeah, and that's true. So what comes from the stage, I guess, is what I'm talking about. In reality, and how it's applied in the congregation, we know a family that was pretty much just torn apart, the husband and wife, because the elders and what they were doing, it was insane. I'm not saying there wasn't situations in their family that caused stress on their relationship in the first place, but the elders exacerbated the problem and totally blew out of proportion some things and misread everything. And anyway, I'm not going to get into that. That's somebody else's story.
It's just a hard. We want to make general statements, but we don't want to be so generalized that we're being like
obtruse,
naive. Like we're not. Yeah, we see that there's problems. Yeah, we see that there are issues, but the fluffy story that comes off the stage sounds really good, even though it's not reality, to some degree.
How they apply it, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and usually it's the hierarchy, again.
Yeah. So
always.
So we kind of prayed about, like, what should we talk about?
So we made a little prayer about it, as far as that goes, because, again, we get these trolls, and that's not to say that there aren't a lot of people out there, and we do, that's another factor that plays into it, that has still maintained their faith and have gone through some sort of injustice. But just that idea in the back of your mind, because that's what you're told, is, we just come back and, that's what your family is telling you if they talking to you. That's what I'm buttoning my collar by my sleeves.
But that's part of the psychological. I don't know. I don't know what to call.
Well, they want to talk to you too.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, and whether or not you think you're being disfellowshipped and it's a culty situation, you still want to have that association with your family. Mm-hmm. So it's only natural that family, even if they can't justify it, they recognize the injustice or whatever else. They say, well, just come back. How do you come back? For one, you think it's just a matter of you walk in the door and say, I'm back. It doesn't work that way. No, you go through another inquisition.
Yeah.
And they say, so, do you feel differently? Now, I asked a question. How can I feel differently? You didn't answer my question. You wouldn't even let me ask the questions. As soon as I told you there were questions, you came after me with a witch hunt. Mm-hmm. What are you apologizing? Is that what's going on here? Oh, most certainly not. They don't apologize. I told an elder that once. I've never heard an elder apologize on something serious, unless some hierarchy made him do it because of some legal reason, usually.
Yeah. I want to say, for somebody who has had growing up in an abusive household, for me, like, to go back, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but to go back, it's like walking into an abusive home again.
that situation.
Yeah, like going back to that. Like,
Without an apology.
why would I do that?
Yeah. So, as we mentioned, we were sort of praying about that. And lo and behold, I get this text. So the guy texts me, and he uses the third person for his name here, so I'll just say third person. Hi, third person was wondering if you have returned to Jehovah yet by going to meetings, working out your being reinstated, ? And he sent that twice. And then that wasn't enough. He had to send a question mark right after it. Well, and this was all within, 45 minutes. Well, we were picking up a couple of cars and doing a Bible study, so I responded with this. Sorry, was picking up a couple of cars yesterday and had a Bible study in between. Is this sir? I'll use sir instead of his name. Just speaking in the third person or someone else? Yes, this is third person, is his response. Just asked you a simple question. So that's what starts this conversation, and it's sort of an answer to a prayer. So we'll continue with these texts and finish up with them, but now we're going to cut into the day we were disfellowshipped after we came home from meeting, and we just kind of shot a video of how we were feeling at the moment, because it's an emotional roller coaster of ups and downs. So going back and kind of giving some commentary on that is sort of what we wanted to do on this anniversary. And then we'll talk about this guy's texts and answer to our prayer as to going back.
Oh, it's dark. Dang.
It'll live. Why does it say there's like 10 minutes on there?
I think I only have 10 minutes of video left.
We're not pros. We'll just say that. Anyway, today is our... you want to start? Or you want me to?
You can start.
Yeah, it's... So it's the first... We just got disfellowshipped. I don't know what to say. It's weird. It's about the lightest disfellowshipping you could ever have, I would say, because we've been appealing this since...
This has been going on for 4 months.
Yeah.
Our first judicial meeting happened in August. This is November.
And it's because we have questions about the governing body being the faithful slave. Not that the governing body is not doing a great job. We think they are. And not that the governing body isn't leading God's people. I mean, they're taking the lead in the congregation. We don't question their authority in the congregation. We don't question... what is there? Is there anything else that the governing body claims to do or does that we have a problem with? That the governing body is even part of the faithful slave, or
Taking the lead.
Taking the lead of the faithful slave, or
the whole organization.
Yeah, I mean,
No problem with
that's not a problem with any of that. It's just that we have questions about the governing body being solely the ones providing food at the proper time. That there's the only ones in the world
There's
that are
only
doing it.
7 men giving food.
At the proper time? Only?
That's a question.
So and it's deeper than just that simple statement. I mean,
Sure.
There are questions as to, and we'll go through the whys and wherefores, I guess, later. I've never even been able to ask those whys or wherefores, because as soon as I did that, I stuck my toe in the bee's nest, apparently, and I booted over the field goal because the bees just came after us like mad. Anyway, it's kind of odd that we're kind of chipper. I mean, we didn't always feel this way, I don't think. Go ahead, you can. I got a beer, by the way. By the way, if you haven't tried these Samuel Adams, the Winter Fest mix, they've got a plethora in there. This isn't a plug. I don't think I'm going to get paid for this at all. If I am, I'll plug it more because it's really good, especially the dark beer one. Anyway, your turn.
The chocolate is really yummy.
It is.
So we'll start here and kind of interject a little bit in that clip there. We're going to do this periodically as we go through. But you want to start and say anything there?
I just think that it's interesting being a year later now and trying to process, is this real life? But just to say, as far as, am I still in agreement with what Tiffany a year ago or Chad a year ago said? To some degree, yes, absolutely. It's like the scriptures talk about authority in the congregation. It does talk about having elders in the congregation and ministerial servants, and depending on your
Deacons, pastors,
Yeah,
depending on your translation.
exactly, depending on translation, that there is authority in the congregation. But to have authority that's like Pope-like, where they're making decisions for your every move of your life, I don't see that in the scriptures.
And so that is one thing to clarify there that's in that statement. But as far as them organizing the congregation or doing what they're, yeah, you're doing a fine job as far as that goes. I never had a question that when I showed up at the local congregation that there was going to be a service, that there was going to be a timely talks given by brothers, that there was going to be a ministry set up for a weekend, and there's nothing wrong with those things as far as an itinerary. So in that matter, yeah, doing a fine job organizing. Now when it extends into my personal life, yeah, we've never been in favor of that. That's why we've always had these debates with them about going beyond the things written, and why when we were sitting down and that one elder, the SKE elder, when we're sitting in there and I say, what does it mean to go beyond the things written? And he says, not going beyond what the organization says. I was like, what?
He said, what goes beyond what the scriptures and the publications state. Like linked them all in one pretty package with a bow on it.
And I'm like, what? And he says, you heard me. You didn't even want to repeat it. And the reality is that why did Brother Splain then on a annual meeting say in one of the doctrines about the changing, I think it was typical and antitypical representations, he said, why did we do that? Well, we can simply not go beyond the things written. Well, he's a governing body member. So him speaking for the governing body, he's not speaking as an individual. He's speaking as the governing body, a member of that body, stating that they can't go beyond the things written. If what this elder said is that it's the Bible and the publications, well, they could write whatever they want. And that's basically the Catholic claim. You can write whatever you want, and because we're God's organization, it just gets tacked on. So those two are hypocritical. You can't say it includes the publications and then have the one who's supposedly writing the publications say, no, we can't go beyond the things written. Beyond the things written applies to the Bible. That's all there is to it. Until there's new scrolls or you have some proof to back up yourself as God's chosen channel, which is unscriptural to its core.
Yeah, channeling.
I had that argument with an elder too about channeling, about what a channel is. That's in one of our other videos. But the statement of they're doing a fine job in that regard, it still holds true. I think they do well in what their respective roles are
I want to say congregationally.
And congregational.
The congregational role. I'm not saying across the board here.
Yep.
And we'll get into this in a minute.
Yeah, and just to go right into what Tiffany's talking about, I think, is the sex abuse situation. We absolutely don't agree with what they're handling it. But again, rewind a year. I already knew about the Australian Royal Commission, and I think Brother Jackson did a good job on some points, and some points not so good. So you're kind of weighing all this stuff out, and then you're not getting a lot of the info that's going on. A lot of that in the last year has come forward quite a bit with these cases being closed that were at that point, well, they were just accusations, whether or not they turned true or not. And I'm not saying that we were informed to the nth degree either. I wouldn't call myself asleep by any means, as they would say. I was aware of these things that were going on. But I was patient enough to let some of these things play out before I put my own opinion in, as the scripture says. Anybody who replies to a matter before he's aware of it is foolishness. So let the courts do their job and see how it played out. And they did. And the play out wasn't pretty. So we wouldn't agree on those aspects. But some of the aspects we do agree with. We do agree with that there's authority in the congregation. And our question still remains the same. And you know what? Those individuals want to call us pomey or call us still asleep or whatever they want to say. I want to say this. We are probably one of the only ones who will validate everything that you say about witnesses. Maybe I'm blowing that out of proportion. But we really make the point stand out. Because when they say, oh, you're apostate, and you say, you argue with that, and yet you don't believe in God, I'm sorry, but even in all witnesses' minds, you are apostate. If you go to Christendom's teachings, well, yeah, you have become apostate or separated yourself from their teachings. So, in a way, we validate many of the things that you say as far as, or everyone else says, about what goes on in this organization. Because we still believe all those same things, a lot of those same things that we always believed and can prove from the scriptures. That's the kicker there. I'm not saying we believed everything, never thought we had to. But the things that I could defend in the scriptures. And as I mentioned earlier, we have no problem with debating anybody who wants to pull out of the shadows and get on a video and do this discussion.
Mm-hmm. I think what you're trying to say is doctrinally from the scriptures saying this, because there are a lot of things that Watchtower puts forth where it's like, well, that seems really Pharisaic, or that seems a real...
And we've always argued those points.
Yeah,
so I'm not talking about those
We're
points.
on board with that idea, like
Yep.
you're being Pharisaic, or I think you are going beyond the things written, or I think that's up to my conscience to decide, not yours.
Not yours, yeah.
I want to just give an illustration, and I don't know if this fits here or not, but it's sort of like you look at an animal. This is going to seem really disgusting, but you look at an animal and you think, man, that animal, there's kind of something wrong with it, but it looks pretty good. It looks like it's got a shiny coat, and it looks pretty good, and then it rolls over and you see it's got a big old wound on its belly, and it's just rotting from the inside out. But looking at it from a distance, you can't really tell.
Maggots all over it.
And it's
We've
disgusting.
had this happen. There was a rabbit
Yeah.
that we had, and it was that exact situation, and it was just it looked fine. And then just noticed it itching its face. Pulled the fur back, and the whole thing was full of maggots. I mean, I spent hours trying to clean that out from its different cavities in its body and skull and whatever else, and it ended up horrific. The animal ended up dying. So whether that happens to Watchtower, that's not my determination. That's God's.
Yeah.
That's up to Jehovah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying with the illustration is that's kind of the way that I view it. It's like you see it as sort of a nice looking creature.
Or as
that
Jesus
monster
said,
looks nice.
It's nice and white on the outside,
Yeah.
but it's just whitewashed.
Yeah.
On the inside, there's some things going on that ain't
It's
good.
rotten.
There's
rotten.
some rotten things going on in there. So, but as far as the core beliefs and sticking to those,
Scripturally.
Scriptural core beliefs, we validate many of the things a lot of these other XJWs say about witnesses and their oppression. We were disfellowshipped for asking a question. And even witnesses doubt that. We know somebody else, as we just mentioned, who just got disfellowshipped for asking a question about sex abuse. So, and yet they still believe most of the same things that they did as witnesses, that they can prove from the scriptures. They're biblical people. So the reality is that we validate many of those things that you say, just to reiterate that point. And I realize that that's not the most popular thing, and maybe it's cost us viewers or whatever else, because we haven't wholesale tossed away our faith and went atheist, or wholesale tossed away our faith and become members of Christendom, or of another church. But the reality is that we validate those points still. I know I'm saying it over and over again, but it really does validate the oppression that many people are trying to say exists in this organization. Because our videos are to prove how the Watchtower Society is not living up to the Bible as they say they are. Atheists just want to beat them up, and there's plenty of channels that will go that route. Others want to take a Christendom route through different doctrinal issues. We've kind of stayed away from a lot of doctrinal issues, not that we don't want to stand up for them. Or we wouldn't stand up for them, because we do, and we have on comments, as I've talked about. But there's plenty of channels out there for that. Our channel is specifically around one, I think Tiffany says it a lot of times.
Well, for me, my motive for starting this channel was it was supposed to be for a therapeutic reason for myself and other people. They can come to this space, talk about their situation if it's similar to mine or not, whatever they want to talk about.
And some of them
So that
are
they
afraid to comment about it.
Yeah, so they don't feel like they are so isolated in their own head. Like they've got this war going on in their own head. But listen, you can voice what you need to say when we post scriptures because we really believe what the scriptures teach.
And we want to, and again, the whole point is to show how witnesses are not living up to what they preach or what's in the scriptures.
Yeah,
And
hypocrisy.
That's the point we're getting at. That's the whole point of our channel. The channel.
So let's play the next part.
We have been witnesses, well, we were until tonight being disfellowshipped, witnesses for about 15 years. And we have had nothing but problems the whole 15 years. The organization has continued to slide us over and over and over and over again. And we've just put up with it in love, as the scripture
we're
says.
loyal.
And yeah, we're loyal to the brothers. We're
Love
loyal.
Jehovah, love Jesus Christ, love the
Absolutely.
brotherhood.
Absolutely.
As far as what you see on videos and people that are disfellowshipped, 99% of the time.
We're not apostates, as
Well,
what the people
they're-
would call apostates.
Yeah. We most people are it's immorality. They've committed adultery.
Somebody who's disfellowshipped would do a blatant wrong.
Yeah, or I'm trying to think of different things that people are disfellowshipped that are the norm. And usually it's immorality of some sort, pornography, or even or something like that. But we've kind of not really.
Or just doubts, and I wouldn't necessarily say that we even have
They're not
doubts. We just have a question. We have a question, and my God, you guess you can't have a question.
But anyway, we feel
Yeah.
pretty good given the circumstance. It might be because it's been going on for 4 months. We had our judicial meeting, and that lasted how many hours? You took the math down for judicial meeting.
7 or 8.
7 or 8 hours.
I don't remember.
And then
all I know is that I counted the judicial
meeting
meeting and
was-
the appeal meeting together, because we had the judicial meeting,
And then we did an appeal meeting.
and then we also wrote the branch, and we got that answer last week. But they grilled us for 20 hours total between the 2 meetings.
Yeah, man, I can.
I mean,
through
that's
all of that.
crazy. 20 hours, and yeah, we've got a lot of records written down, and our letter to the branch was 28 pages. I notarized it to make sure that nothing was going to be
Things
altered.
were so off the book, we thought maybe they wouldn't send it in. I even called the branch to make sure they got it because it was so crazy. I couldn't believe that they'd side with them. Whatever. How we feel is kind of not feeling bad. And I don't know if we'll feel differently in a couple days or...
I won't.
Yeah, I mean, you know what it reminds me? It reminds me of the scripture where I think we might even have gone through this partially tonight. It was talking about the apostles rejoiced in the fact that they'd been counted worthy to be dishonored in Christ Jesus' name. And that's kind of the way it is, because we have one mediator between men and God. And that mediator is Jesus Christ. That's the only one. No other name on heaven or on earth has been granted to be that between man and God. So in a way, that's what we're being chastised for, is because other people want to look to men. And I think they're doing a great job, but I just don't think you look to them. Jesus Christ is our exemplar. Now, not that they can't be examples too. I mean, we're examples to one another and those types of things. But yeah, anyway, we feel fairly chipper. Went away rejoicing. This is your rodent.
This is my little buglet. My 3-pound little bug.
So you saw there at the beginning of that little clip, we were chipper, we were rather happy. And to a certain degree, I felt so much relief, like freedom. Finally, I don't have somebody bearing down Watchtower or elders in the congregation or the judgments or the comments. All of this buildup was finally like, finally, I can just let go of that.
Yeah, you have to understand the dynamics of the mental mind games that we were going through. And as you said, the comments that were being fired around and whatever else, so your emotional state, the exaggerations, sometimes lies that
The
were
slander.
told about you, the slander that's going from all over different congregations, even though you've not done anything in regard to hurtful against them. You just had a couple of
Mhm.
questions.
Yeah.
So in that regard, you've got to understand it was like a weight off, whether it was going to be for or against us in that regard. We kind of had a feeling that it was going to go against us, just the way everything was going and the way they were doing it. It's like, how could they possibly even backtrack on this? If they backtrack on this, it would look so bad for them, because we know for a fact they slandered us in at least 2 other congregations. And it's not even a question.
The 2 congregations, and the reason I think the reason why you're saying that is because we had gone, and I know there's more congregations actually involved,
Yeah.
because we were part of the, and we've said this before, part of the Grafton congregation. We were going 2 hours from our house to Grand Forks to that congregation. And then if we had to go west, sometimes we'd go to the Botno congregation, which is 100 miles.
Yep.
So
110 miles Grand Forks, 100 miles to Botno.
yeah, so the elders in Grafton, it's like they sent out this mass memo to all of the congregations that they knew we were going to.
Oh, they call them up and talk to them.
Yeah,
We know that.
I'm just saying, like, they just sent out this memo, aka calling them and warning, I guess that's a warning, hey, these people are...
Whatever they tell them.
I
They're
don't know what
apostates,
yeah.
whatever, but then you don't get a warm reception there at all either.
Yeah, they totally put up their fence and walls and guard, and
Yep.
you've got no chance,
Yep.
chance. And just as something, I remember talking to my doctor. She's my general practitioner doctor, and I was telling her about it because I was just in absolute anguish and I was having all these health issues, and she's like, well, can you tell me what's going on? And I briefly told her, and I said, she says, well, can't you just go to another church, is what she called it, but another congregation? And I said, no, because my records will just follow me. And she's like, my doctor said, that's bullshit. So I just thought that was funny coming from her. Yeah, anyway.
Yep. So it's not something you can just, get a fresh start on, because they just slander you in every congregation you go to.
Yep.
And we know somebody else in the congregation who was dealing with that. He did the same thing, went out of this congregation, went to Grand Forks, and he said, they're slandering me. And I kept, no, they're not slandering you. They're not slandering you in that congregation. And sure enough, one of the elders was slandering him inside our hall. And I confronted him on it and said, you can't be doing this. Here I'm going and I'm backing you brothers up, saying you're not slandering him. And you, in fact, are slandering him. You're slandering him to other congregations who aren't even involved in this situation.
Mm-hmm. They will malign a person's reputation if they personally, them as a personal person, like them personally.
They feel attacked.
I feel attacked.
I am
feel
Jehovah's
slighted.
representative. You are talking about me. I will slander you throughout all the congregations.
Yep.
And they have free will to do it.
Yep.
They have free will to do it.
And they're believed, and that's so sad because there's no one checking them.
As the one elder said to me, I will never doubt what another brother has to say.
Another elder.
Another elder, he means.
Yeah.
So and so that was like hierarchy or bust is the bottom line. And it was like, wow, that's disgusting. That is not scriptural. Jesus did not say hierarchy or bust. He said, you want to go wash feet. Mm-hmm. He who's lowly will be the greatest among you. Go serve your brothers. No, they serve a hierarchy.
Yep. And as far as the last clip you saw of us saying a year ago, and Chad said, I think I'm loyal to the brotherhood. I think that's what you said. And, obviously I'm not loyal to men over loyal to Jehovah, but, you're loyal. It's like the scripture says, the Bible says God would be loyal to those that are loyal to him. And I follow...
Not to an organization.
No, and I'm just saying I follow that principle in my life. People that are loyal to me, I'll be loyal back to you. And so, yeah, I thought that they were my friends. I really, truly thought that they were my friends until all of this happened. So, yeah, I was loyal to them.
And some of those individuals, to be fair, and to some of those individuals, to be fair, they're still our friends. They're still our friends. They still associate with us. They know what's going on. They did prove to be a friend when there was distress, I'll say that.
Yep.
Where others, they just go along with whatever hierarchy says. And that's sad because if the Christians did that, they'd still be Jews.
Yeah.
If you can go over and over again with the different prophets. And if the Israelites would have done that, they didn't make it through. By and large, you read the scriptures, what happens is Jehovah's organization goes down, and there's a loyal remnant that remains, an unpopular loyal remnant.
Mm-hmm.
But they are loyal to Jehovah.
Yep, and they are a small number. They really, that remnant, a remnant
Historically
is
speaking.
a small number.
Yep.
And so then the next thing we talked about in the last clip was, I think I said, my God, you can't even ask a question. But in the Bible Teach book, it says you should be able to ask a question. That's the first chapter of the Bible Teach book. We talk to people out in the ministry, but it's not good once you're baptized. That idea is no longer valid.
And yes, those who want to naysay, sorry.
That is the truth. We have done nothing apostate wrong. We didn't even get to ask our question. You people on YouTube know more of the story really than they do as far as questioning.
Yeah. That's it. You know everything they know. We haven't revealed a lot of it, which reasons we're still keeping on
which are
shelf.
they're still developing right now
Yeah.
behind the scenes, which we'll talk about later. But the last thing I think we talked about in that clip was, I think Chad said, maybe in a few days we'll feel differently, and I said, well, I won't. Little did I know, I really would feel differently. I was really upset. It's like it's grief. You go through every stage of grief. You're happy, you're sad, you're confused, you're mad, you're bargaining, you're doing all the things that you would if you lost in death, because you're not grieving their death, you're grieving your own death, because that's what it is. It's an execution of your own death.
Yeah.
And then I was going to actually physically have to deal with a death. My little dog, 3 days later, being attacked. I didn't realize to what degree my life was going to change, to devastation.
Yeah.
It was
And
one of the worst. It was worse than the announcement. It was worse than going through all of that appeal, all of that judicial, to lose my baby child. My dog is like my child. She's a service animal. It was one of the worst days of my life. It's just an extreme roller coaster of emotion.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just can't.
It's a great way to put it.
You can't calculate that.
And it was going through, but at some point you hope that you've reached bottom, top, whatever it is, and it's not going to go up or down again. It's like, okay, I've plateaued now. I'm done with this emotionally. And I probably think that's what you were talking about when you said that. I'm not going to feel differently. This is it. I'm done. I'm over this. Well, and then you go through another, I guess the roller coaster can take another dip,
Yeah.
And so then you're down as far as emotion goes. But at that moment, it was pretty refreshing to have that weight of the stress off.
Yeah.
This is your rodent.
This is my little buglet. My 3-pound little bug here. She gets excited to see her mama. No, we actually do feel pretty content with the scenario right now. I don't think I'm going to change my mind, because I shouldn't say change my mind.
Your emotions
I should say change my
vacillate.
feelings.
It is emotional roller coaster going through this.
Very much so, and I've had a lot of, with stress, you have health issues, and I've had doctoring, and it's just been horrible, and it's been going on now for at least 2 years.
I mean, yeah, there's not. That's another thing you can disfellowship for is blood issue, and Tiffany does have a blood issue. She gets
my iron is low.
So she gets infusions, not transfusions, infusions
Iron
of iron.
and just iron. But now I don't have a.
So yeah, but you
legal
have the
stance.
Doctors always telling you to. Yes,
Yes.
you do have a legal stance, because you can always make out your own DPA.
No, I'm saying I don't have a legal stance backed behind Jehovah's
Yeah,
Witnesses. I have to go to a lawyer and have my own documents signed and made up, and so that
I think you can do it yourself. I'm sure there's forms for that on there.
probably.
At any rate, but so it's not like, I mean, we're loyal as far as that goes. We don't take blood, so that's not the issue either. It's not like we got a transfusion. I'm trying to think of any of the things that somebody might do that we don't teach anything else in the ministry. I can go through what we teach as far as Matthew 24:45, and if that subject ever comes across. I'm very big on questions. The BE book, which is Theocratic Ministry School book for Jehovah's Witnesses, is a great book. I think it's a fabulous book as far as developing teaching skills. It talks about asking questions and letting the person make their own discernment based on the scriptures. Now, true, we may have to bring in other scriptures to help them clarify a point or whatever else. But literature has never been my go-to since I've come into the truth, and I can explain that.
So you saw the next clip of that, and some of that has kind of already been expressed with health concerns and, the roller coaster ride and everything like that. But as you can see, we, a year ago, had also said we didn't do anything to be disfellowshipped.
Yeah, we tried to name off the different things that we could possibly think of that someone might think that we were disfellowshipped for, because we didn't believe we were being disfellowshipped for this, so we could imagine that other people weren't going to believe it either.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. Just get tangled with the wrong person, and they witch hunt after you.
Or the wrong group of elders.
Yeah, it's like they get. I think in the last video or the 2 videos ago, we said it's like an inquisition. Modern day inquisition. It's a witch hunt. They will hunt you down and use whatever means to do it to disfellowship you.
And any one of those
They will trump up a story.
And any one of those elders becomes a door to a Pandora's box. Mm-hmm. If you tick off one of them, and we kind of saw this before, like I said, with the whole date only in the Lord versus marry only in the Lord, but I attributed all that up to, I ticked her uncle off by dating her, or dating her, getting engaged to her. We didn't date in the sense of dating as most people talk about it. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I attributed it to that, but now it's absolutely clear that it's a hierarchical system, and if you at all question a hierarchical decision, an individual, and it can be on a personal level of what shoes you're going to wear. Mm-hmm. So now I had an elder tell me that from Devil's Lake. Is this an apostate situation? Why? Because I don't want to do something that you say in my personal life, because I don't want to listen to the kind of music you think I shouldn't listen to or whatever else. And that was just a situation that happened to our household with down there. But any one of these elders, like I said, can be a door to a Pandora's box in which they all turn against you. Mm-hmm. As far as feeling that similarly, yeah, the BE book is a great book. And, I talk about this in the Clint's Reveal video that's going to be released very shortly now. That it teaches you a lot. The problem is most people don't apply it. So then when you do apply it, you excel. It's a great book. And if you are applying it, you will excel in your ministry, in your skills. If you get the scriptural principles out of it, yeah, it's a great book. Problem is that a lot of people don't, and then they develop jealousy over you because you do apply it.
Yeah, and they're not. And I don't want to say that the principles that are found in that are just strictly for the ministry or strictly for. I mean, you learn a lot of speaking skills. You learn how to talk with the public. You learn how to talk. I mean, we're both business owners, and it's helped us in our business. It's helped us in our life. I'm naturally introverted person, and so I'm perfectly fine with just crawling in a hole and just being by myself doing my own thing. But some of those principles get you out, get you talking to people, get you doing things that you naturally don't really want to do.
And bringing out technical skills.
Yeah.
How to make your voice carry in certain scenarios. How Jesus backed up went out into the water when he made a certain discourse. Or the way he sat up on a hill when he did a Sermon on the Mount. So those types of things can help you think abstractly using those scriptures and how to apply them in your day-to-day ministry. Mm-hmm. How can you turn your body to cancel out road noise while you're having a discussion? Or, position yourself to where the dog is not going to be intervening with its barking or whatever else. Mm-hmm. Try to mitigate some of those external forces, as you're having that conversation. So if you apply those things, absolutely, it's a great book.
And, I want to say that is a congregational teaching
tool.
Yeah, tool. That's a good way to say it. It has nothing to do with the rottenness of the policies.
Right.
That has to do with
And the hierarchical authority.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, the hierarchical authority and the rotten policies are often contradict what's in the literature.
Yes.
Often.
Yes.
Not always, as there's many points that are in the literature that are way off, like when they talk about God has a channel. No, there's no channeling. No channeling going on. I'm pretty sure the GB isn't having a seance. I'm just think that they over-elevate themselves and think that their thoughts are God's thoughts. Anyway, another subject matter.
Let's just play the next section.
And I say that loosely, truth, because truth is...
We don't believe truth is a religion.
Yes.
Like they're saying. Truths of the Bible make up a belief system.
Exactly. So when I say truth, I speak of John 4:23 and 24. The Father is looking for ones to worship him with spirit and truth. So in other words, if you can define something as being truthful, you hold to that, that's the truth. You have 2 of those things, that's also the truth. If you have 3 of those things, that's also truth. So the more of those you have, of course, the closer you are to truth. So anyway, when we say the truth in that sense, at least that's my perspective of the truth. It's not truth as in
a religion. As if you're speaking of a entity.
Yeah. Not to say that I don't believe that Jehovah's Witnesses have a great many truths that make up a
I wouldn't, and I would agree, and I would still be a member of the congregation. And
we didn't want to be disfellowshipped.
No, it's not like we did not disassociate ourselves, obviously, because we fought all the way as long as we possibly could.
But I think that probably sums it up pretty good. I'm feeling pretty decent. You're feeling pretty decent. We'll see what we feel like a couple days. But we're definitely going to do something else about this because it ain't justice.
So we just started with that last clip talking about truths that make up a belief system. Not that the religion is the truth.
We have a whole video about that. That was one of the bomb droppers as far as perspectives and viewpoints of the religion, that the religion is the truth.
Yeah.
We've got an entire video on that.
And then I'd mentioned I'd still be a witness. And boy, that's hard because I don't know. I appreciate so many things. But again, that illustration of, it looks good, but that rotting from the inside.
I think it's important to qualify it because a lot of the rottenness that you're talking about, we saw because we took the rabbit out of the cage. To bring back that illustration. However, if you just stood back and never were in that circumstance to get close, it just looks like a rabbit. It looks fine.
Yeah.
So our situation and what we went through really exposed a lot of that magotry. Mm-hmm. If I can make that a word.
Yeah.
Verbalize a noun. But so if you got to go, okay, so you're not disfellowshipped and you can ask questions like they say. So in other words, you can ask questions, and then let's say you don't even get any answers. They do the best they can, but you have more questions, as would have been the case if they'd let us ask those questions, but they didn't. They just were into collecting information, and we've got a whole other story we could add to that, how they drew us out, even what we did tell them. You can trust us. You can trust us.
Their investigation.
Me in tears going, no, I don't trust you. I don't want to tell you. I'll just leave it. And then later, them coming right after that and stabbing us in the back with it. Well, how did we stab you in the back? I never said it was going to be confidential. What? Anyway.
Yeah, that was one of the statements I never said that it would be confidential.
We're getting off point here.
So I just want to say, as far as, I'd still be a witness, all you can do is say what has happened. So would I still be a witness? Well, I'm not now. I'm not a Jehovah's Witness now. And I've seen some pretty rotten things. So I can't say for sure.
But going back to that situation, you can say, if you were asked, you could ask the questions.
Yeah.
And again, maybe they don't even have an answer for you, but you're able to answer the questions. And as things have developed since the last year in the sex abuse situation, and you could ask those questions, and again, not that they would have the answers, but you were allowed to ask those questions, would you still be a witness?
Well, that changes the dynamics of everything.
It does.
You know, that's if I'm allowed to ask questions, a lot of people would feel like this isn't a bad place to be because I can ask questions. I don't have things hanging over my head. You don't live in fear. There's all kinds of things that would change the dynamics.
Yeah, and that would, quite honestly, that would pretty much give you that shelf to where you go, you know what, you put it on the shelf, let Jehovah handle it.
Yeah.
Because in the end, that's all they could answer about. Well, why did the brothers just go to the Supreme Court and try to get penitent privilege for sex abusers? Well, yeah, we don't know the details of that one. You just have to leave that one in Jehovah's hands and put it on the shelf. Mm-hmm. If that was the case, instead of coming after you ask that question, because once you have that question, then others are going to come along like it. If the two-witness rule, and maybe they watch the Australian Royal Commission or something else, if the two-witness rule applied only in the city and not out in the field, it shows their circumstances. Why do we have to apply the two-witness rule when it comes to child sex abuse? And by the way, they've changed the two-witness rule. People don't talk about this much, but they did. It used to be you had to have two witnesses to the single event. It's not two witnesses to the single event now. Now, a sex abuser could molest a child, 10 years later, molest another child, and have a witness come forward 10 years apart. That counts as two witnesses. Now, it wasn't back then. Mm. So yes, they have changed the two-witness rule. So just to make that point. So to say, when they say, oh, we can never change. Yeah, they do change. They just don't ever want to make it seem like they're changing from external forces. You could come up to them and tell them something absolutely true. They would blow your head off and then 5 years later make the change that you suggested.
Mm-hmm. But what about all the damage that you've caused for all these different people in the past?
That doesn't matter. What matters is that they're a presumed authority issued from God and not from some underling.
Well, that seems Pharisaic to me.
Oh, well, absolutely it is.
Yeah.
But going back to that point, if you change the dynamics, it gives you that shelf to put it on. To bring out that point, just as much of a problem, a bigger one in scope because the religion's so much bigger. I'm not saying per capita. I'm just saying bigger because of the religion's bigger. Look at Catholics. I know probably hundreds of Catholics, quite honestly. And yet they're all still Catholics, going to church or going to Mass, and yet not agreeing with the way that the church handled the situation. Mm-hmm. But because the Catholics don't cut their heads off, they're still Catholics. They're still putting money in their coffers. Watchtower would prefer just to chop off your head so that way whatever propaganda they promote is the only thing that witnesses have to discuss. So I think all of that has to take it in balance when you talk about whether or not you'd still be a witness. One, we got disfellowshipped because we were asking those questions. Would we ever stop asking those questions?
Well, it's sort of like in the last video where I was having the infusion done, and the nurse said, well, usually the God we know can handle questions. And I said, exactly, that's what we thought. And so just being curious-minded as humans, asking questions, for somebody to say, no, you can't ask those questions.
Or as soon as you do, to go after you to chop off your head?
That's not godly. That's not godly at all. We have account after account after account
in the
scriptures where ones are questioning over the same person is questioning God over and over and over again.
Abraham,
just
the
to
Bereans,
clarify, just to make sure. And Jehovah,
Gideon.
God didn't do anything to those people. Did not punish those people for asking those questions.
So to assume now, or for witnesses to assume now, that God is all of a sudden displeased with you because you were disfellowshipped for asking questions, I'm sorry, that misses the mark. Those bullets zing by every time without any effect on us whatsoever. Our mind has to overrule, and does overrule, those baseless accusations. The scriptures just overrule that. So
Yeah.
your statement is, yeah, we'd still ask those questions. So if their policy is they're going to disfellowship you for asking questions, yeah, we'd be disfellowshipped again. However, if that wasn't the policy, I can't imagine that we wouldn't still be witnesses.
In that scenario, probably. It's hard to say because now we're in this scenario, and different things have developed. Who really knows? I
Yeah.
mean, but under that circumstance, if I can ask questions and not live in fear and not have my family, the few members of my family that are witnesses, held hostage from me, and not have the mind games and not, all those different abuses, would I still be a witness? Probably. In a perfect world where the organization says what they are on the platform, that fluffy way, if they really are that way, would I be a witness? Probably, but they're not that way.
Even with imperfections.
They're hypocrites.
Yeah. Yeah. Even with imperfections,
So-
though, that, like I said, that
It's hard.
shelf would be there to put that stuff on.
Yeah.
Leave it in Jehovah's hands, as opposed to leave it in Jehovah's hands or else. And I also mentioned there how I was never a big literature pusher. That's absolutely true. We were never big on pushing literature. So when they started decreasing the literature and started pushing that, it's like, yeah, we've been like saying this for 10 years. Just use the Bible.
Yeah.
Go to the door, ask a question, and answer with the scriptures. That was even witnessed against us, that statement in our judicial
Testimony
committee.
against
That's
us.
the testimony against us, is that we said to go to the door, use the Bible, ask a question. So there's even though in statement they'll say, oh, don't use you don't have to use the literature or whatever else, or when you're cutting down on literature, there's still that faction that exists. You want to talk about not having disagreements or factions among them, or sects? Oh, there's definitely sects. There's absolutely sects. Individuals who stick to the scriptures and individuals who cater to whatever the organization says.
There's a division
there's
in
an
the congregation.
absolute division in the congregation. And they'll do anything they can to quash that with propaganda of not murmuring and whatever else. And I'm going to go through a video on this too, because they like to put themselves in the seat of Moses, which they are not Moses.
And I think that's a good point as far as the division between, what happened in the Israelites. There was a split.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a really good thing to talk about too.
Next clip then.